I didn't ever touch my own vulva until I was like 35. I'm 40.
Wow.
No, I'm not. And I'm not kidding. Like never. I had used a vibrator before that, but never with my own hands. 40% of women at some point in their lifetime, it will have some type of pelvic issue related to sex, sexual pain, lack of desire, loss of libido, all of these things, 40%. And I actually think that's an underreported number.
Welcome back to Wandering into Wellness. We are so excited that you're here. It's Finn and Lydia as usual. And today we have returning to our podcast a very special guest, one of our favorite people, doctor of physical therapy, no less, Briane Grogan.
Hey,
Well, thank you. So happy to be back.
What our podcast with you is one of the most well-received podcasts that you've done, and it is one where we get comments all the time where people say, she's amazing. I'm like, I know.
Yeah, we sent so many people to you, and it's become such a big part, I think, well, certainly for your work, but also my work in the store, which is like, nutrition focused stuff, but then pelvic health stuff is just, it's opened a massive door for me, and to send people towards that and to your content is amazing. So thank you.
You. Yeah. Thanks for being so open to it. And I really love having the male and female perspective and just the openness that both of you, and, I'm just going to point you out, Finn, but as a male, not always are men. So, just open and willing to chat about pelvic health issues for all genders, and I think that's really wonderful that you are. So thank you for that.
Yeah,
always fascinating.
We were doing a podcast recently where we were talking about this, a little bit of a kind of behind the scenes podcast where we were talking about how important it is, I think, to have men open to talk about like period health and menstrual health and menopause and sex lives and those kinds of things, because it enables women to feel able to talk to their own partners and to bring that up and bring it back into their homes.
I'm obviously built differently because I really don't understand. It's like people who are non-smokers don't understand smokers. I don't really understand how men wouldn't find enjoyment in having the privilege of somebody opening up, which is a very, very intimate personal thing that really helps you to understand how somebody ticks. Like, I just don't get how that isn't just one of the great things that men are like, can I talk about it? And the ick, I'm like, what? So many things I don't understand about it.
I know.
How it's marginalized.
I'm the same. And if I may, I know we're supposed to introduce the topic, but may I say something else really quickly?
Oh.
Really quick. My son, he's 17, and he and his girlfriend are very open about her period. Like well, I won't get into details, but point is, like, he's very, very just neutral about the whole thing. And I think what a gorgeous thing. I must have done something right here. So
I feel the same. I feel the same. My son's 10. And like, since he was 4, he would know about when I had my period, and he'd go, can I rub your belly? Or let's get you a cup of tea. Or, oh, you can't do that. You've got to go get your period pants. That means you're not swimming. And like, you're just thinking, God, I really feel so like how lucky for whatever girl he dates that they're getting this like human who's going to understand all that stuff. But it is our job also as women and who are raising boys to foster that and to talk about it and to be open with them, I think.
It sure is. And in a world where we're still so censored, I have a friend actually in Ireland whose account on Instagram was just censored because she uses the word womb. Womb. What? I know. It shocked me. But she showed screenshots of the messages she was receiving from Instagram, and it was really related to her use of the word womb.
They haven't misheard it.
Cry. Yeah.
Whoa.
This actually, as a nice segue, feeds into the topic that we're going to be talking about right now. Because this censorship and this shame and this inability to talk openly creates stress in the body and creates shame and stress around our sexual organs and prevents us from having open conversation and dialogue with our partners that allow us to have really good sex, right? And so today we're having you back because let's just paint a little picture, I guess. Last time we had you on, we were talking about this phrase that you had coined or that you had heard, and we were talking about called the pandemic of the pelvic floor or pandemic in the pelvis, where you were seeing that the stress that people were experiencing externally was manifesting internally in this chronic pelvic floor dysfunction or hypertonicness, let's say. But since then, recent studies have shown people are more stressed, they're having less sex, there's more erectile dysfunction, more of these pelvic floor issues like vulvodynia and pelvic floor dysfunction, more fertility problems. And in fact, some studies are suggesting that there will be 0% fertility by 2050. So we're kind of at this crazy crisis point. Like, what on earth is going on?
I know. It really is. I'm so glad we're talking about this. Yes, 40% of women at some point in their lifetime, it will have some type of pelvic issue related to sex, sexual pain, lack of desire, loss of libido, all of these things, 40%. And I actually think that's an underreported number. I've read higher than that too, but that was the most recent stat I read. So it's very, very common. And just like you're saying, the pandemic did impact this. We thought people would just be stuck at home having crazy sex, and it didn't happen that way. There was, some trends happened. I believe there was more an increase in like sex toys and things like that.
Yeah.
Yes, and kink. And that's interesting. But as far as like paired sexual relations, that actually did not improve, that did not increase. And exactly what you said. So yes, this is a big problem.
Yeah, so we wanted to kind of revisit our chat with you, really, because you're a pelvic floor expert and because you now work also in somatic practices to help that kind of comprehension, or help people have that comprehension that stress, that emotion, that trauma, our issues get really stuck in our tissues and we need to learn how to release them. But our nervous system is linked to our sex organs and our sex life, right? Can you talk into that a little bit?
Yeah. I mean, for sure. We need to have our nervous system online. We need to be in a regulated state in order to want to have sex. Of course, a lot of people have heard of the nervous system, the sympathetic nervous system being referred to as the fight or flight. And the parasympathetic branch of our nervous system is the rest and digest. But the other way I like to, or I've heard it referred to, and I really like this, is the feed and breed, is the parasympathetic, the calming nervous system, the feed and breed. And that's the one, that's the side of our nervous system. It's a balance. We need our sympathetic nervous system. Of course, we need that aspect of our nervous system to protect us. That's our job of the nervous system, is to protect us. But the parasympathetic, we really need that balance so that we're not always in fight or flight. And the feed and breed is the one that helps us with digestion, with wanting to have sex. So if we are in a fight or flight aroused, hyper aroused state, we're not going to want to have sex. It's not it's a different type of arousal in that situation. It's like a mobilization state usually. And it's a stress-free state, a stressor, high stress response state. We need to be in the calm, rest and digest, feed and breathe state in order to want to have sex. And I believe that women tend to be quite impacted by this. Just as a general overview, a generalization, women are really, really sensitive to our environment. We're sensitive to what's going on in our mind. We really need to, be in a clear, calm place to want to have sex. And that doesn't happen immediately. It takes, in some cases, it can take 2-3 hours to shift from like high stress work mode to that calm, rest and digest, feed and breed parasympathetic state. It doesn't happen in an instant for most of us.
I'm going to go out on a limb here. This is a really weird limb.
Yeah.
But you know the way, so we're speaking about like today, sex to save your life.
Yeah.
The idea of like, we're basically in a global war zone, quasi. If you're listening to media, it certainly feels like we are. Internally in most countries as well as a lot of unrest. And when you look at one of the things that happens during war, particularly with armies, is that a lot of rape happens. A lot of that sort of really negative sexual output happens. And obviously women require a real sense of safety and in order to open up that receptivity thing, which is what allows good consensual sex to happen. I'm just wondering, for men, is it a case that in these sorts of situations where there's chronic stress or high stress, that tendency towards rape might have something to do with fueling this thing towards novelty as well. You know, the way they always say with men, there's a big thing around novelty with erectile dysfunction, and that maybe that's one of the causal factors why in an environment, a world with increasing stressors, we have increasing cheating, we have increasing divorce, because the one thing that's driving men in a different direction towards sex than women is not this receptivity thing, but this hunt for novelty out of stress, born out of this like potential kind of war zone feeling. It's just a thought.
Yeah. You know, I mean, I don't have research or statistic that I know of about that exact thing, but there's such profound differences between people. I'm just going to say people, because everyone's different, even amongst women. Some women deal with stress. It is a stress relief. It is a stress reliever to have sex, just full on, like, let's go. You know, that is wonderful for some women. That is a reliever. But for many men, I think that also what you're saying, Finn, is probably very true. This novelty, but also this aggression and this kind of dominance and power, and this sort of like, that is an outlet, I should say. But I think that for many women, it's very, very important to have that safety, that calm. Yeah. Again, everyone's different, but I do think there is an absolute difference between the genders.
I think not just everyone's different, but we're all different in different stages of our day and stages of our lives. And for those who have a healthy sexual relationship, they embrace a broader version of that spectrum. Things don't kind of go down one specific road. Things can change depending on everyone's feelings in that moment, and whether it's a stress relieving thing or whether it's more of an intimate kind of connection moment thing. I think it's interesting. I'd love to know how the pelvis is, you know, in men and women. Would you love to have that information as to what's happening in that pelvic dynamic in terms of the response to that type of relating at one time or another?
Well, I mean, from a physical perspective, I'll just say we need blood flow. We need blood flow to the pelvis. And so and I'll just speak about women right now, because that's really the population that I work with most is females. And we have this extensive erectile network that men do too. Of course, we know men get erections, women get she-erections. So we absolutely need the blood to be flowing to our vulva, and that whole area is surrounded with erectile tissue. So the clitoris is, you know, huge. It's very extensive. We just have, you know, we don't just have the tip and the head. We have the legs and the bulbs that surround the vagina. And then we have the perineal sponge, which is in the perineum area, the urethral sponge. All of these areas fill with blood, but it doesn't happen instantly. You know, for most of us, we need that safety, that parasympathetic nervous system to be turned on rather than the sympathetic being kind of clamping everything down and shunting. Oh, excuse me for that interruption there. Clamping down and shunting blood away from our erogenous zones, from our erectile tissues in our vulva. We need the parasympathetic to be turned on so that we get that rush of blood and that plumping of the tissues that does not happen instantly. It happens typically quite slowly. It can take quite a long time. And oftentimes it requires a very slow, gentle, tender touch with, you know, really a mindful, bodyful practice where you're out of your head and really feeling safe to be in your body and in the moment. And that's what we need as women physiologically to really experience great sex. And I think a lot of us are so in our head these days. We're so stressed and we are so out of our bodies that that's just something that's not happening for most people. We're not getting that.
And I think we're so busy as well, right? There's this like cult of busy that's happening. So there's the global thing, which is like the wars and the pandemic and the fighting and the polarity and all the conversations about sex and sexual dynamics and sexual gender dynamics as well, and all that stuff that's happening, which is like conversation and confusion and trying to figure out where we all are within those dynamics. And then there's the individual stuff, which is like we're going to work, money isn't going anywhere near as far as it used to, so people are having to work harder and longer. People are working at home, so they're not having that buffer between home and work. they're not getting the podcast on the way home and getting into that mindset that prepares them, that transitions and being honored. And, I know for me working from home, it's like I might be on a Zoom call or I might be working one-to-one with a client. And the moment that client disappears off Zoom, my son's in the room and then I've got to do something with him. And then it's straight back into the next client and then it's straight into dinner. And there's no time for that, like, oh, I'm a woman. Like, how does that feel to be a woman? How did that feel to feel like, even just like, let alone sexual, but like, just how do I feel? Just to get that moment to land back into your body again. So people are also, they're kind of running from the moment that they get up until the moment they get to bed. And then we have this construct of like sex mainly happening in the bedroom at nighttime. And like, you're exhausted.
And that's
like you're getting into that bed and you are like, I want sleep right now. Like the last thing I'm going to do is spend 45 minutes doing arousal techniques before I get into sex. Right?
Totally. Yes. I mean, one of my favorite ideas and concepts is that sex is really happening all day long. Like good sex is happening all day long. And we're building that mindfulness, bodyfulness muscle all day long. Even if that example that you just shared of after a podcast interview or after a meeting with a client on Zoom or whatever it is, just literally taking one breath, hand on your heart, before transitioning to the next thing, like I do not always do it, but it's a strong intention. And it's something I try to do is integrate everything I do, even if it's just for one tiny breath. That's such a simple 5-second practice to incorporate more mindfulness, more bodyfulness, and a bit of stress relief into your day. Just that transition between tasks after you eat lunch, rather than just, shoving down your food, which believe me, I've done it, shoving down my disgustingly non-Instagram worthy meal as I'm like scrolling on my phone and doing whatever. But then it's like catching myself and going, okay, after I'm done shoving this in my face, let's take one breath before moving on to the next thing. Like it's such a simple thing. And that actually helps your sex life. It helps you be more regulated in your nervous system so that you can more easily switch between that sympathetic turned on state and the parasympathetic feed and breed so that you can feel your body. You can slow down. You've gone to the gym for it. Yeah.
Because like we're going to live in that stressful environment. It's just going to be there. It's like how quickly we can switch. It's not whether you're calm all the time. If you're calm under pressure, like fair enough, you might not be, but it's being able to switch, being able to like fluidly kind of transition between those moments so that you have the mindfulness in that second where you're in the bathroom, you go, ooh, yeah. And it's amazing how it works. And it's amazing how much we don't serve ourselves by not doing it so often.
I know. And I mean, this is such a work in progress for everybody, I'm sure, but for me too, like absolutely. And this is what I teach. But I constantly am having to remind myself of this. And yes, nervous system regulation is exactly that. It's how quickly you're able to zig and then zag, go back and forth between those two states. Neither state is bad. We need to be able to turn on that stress response, but we also need to be able to come out of it too. And it takes a lot of practice.
Yeah. So speak to us. So let's say you're engaging your own practices and people who are listening to this are nodding away and going, yes, I can do this. But you've got a partner who needs to come to the dance as well. Are there ways or strategies that you have or know about that are like going to be able to help somebody to bring somebody else into that kind of place of kind of understanding first the kind of concept you're talking about and then starting to embody it whilst whatever's going on in their nervous system, which is some of it visible, some of it invisible? Like, are there things we can do?
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, going back to that whole conversation we just had about how everybody's different, like every human is different. There is some differences between the genders for sure, as far as turn on and arousal and just sex in general. But I do believe strongly that even though there may be some aggression tendencies for certain people and there may be some novelty things and things like that, for the most part, just broad overview, when you're relaxed, when you're present, sex is going to be better for both genders. I mean, yes, there's some outliers and there's some situations where a good aggressive sexual experience is going to be amazing potentially for both parties. But for men and women, whoever is coupling, we want that relaxation, that presence to be there, and just helping your partner understand that, hey, let's try this. Let's try some tools to be more present with each other, to be more in the moment, even if we don't have extra time, just taking a few deep breaths together, just looking each other in the eye. If you have that level of safety and comfort, which hopefully you do with your partner, like, this can be really, really powerful. Let's make a little bit of noise today. If normally it's quiet. Oh my gosh, vocalization is so powerful for people to really enhance arousal. And that vocalization is calming to the nervous system. I mean, of course, it's going to be a little different if you're worried that your roommate or your child is going to hear you and you're not wanting that. That's different. But if you're in a space where you can be vocal, that is very, very stimulating to the vagus nerve. It's calming to the nervous system to actually, make some tones, make some sounds. That doesn't take any longer, Yes, it requires some privacy, if that's what you want, which I do. And it doesn't add time. It's not hard. It's just, I think opening up the conversation with your partner is always important. And hopefully you're with a partner who you feel safe enough to do that with, because calming the nervous system is going to help both parties. Bringing more blood flow and arousal to the genitals is going to help both parties in the experience. Shall I go into some things that I do? Or
literally was the next question.
Okay.
That's it. You got it.
Yeah. Really, for me, and I'm going to speak now just because, again, this is my worldview in my personal life, is with a heterosexual relationship with my husband. But this really applies to any type of partnership at all that's out there. But I do believe that I know that my partner wants to please me. My husband wants to please me. And so if I just let him know that this is what I need, this is something, it's so simple, but I didn't do this for the longest time. I didn't tell him that this is what I needed. And so we've really just started exploring spending more time. This does take more time. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. This does take more time. Spending more time on bringing arousal, bringing blood flow to the vulva, just vulvar touch. And it's not even internal. It's external vulvar touch. Mm-hmm. And I aid that by spending some time every day with myself, even if it's literally 1 minute. And I'm not talking about goal-oriented, orgasm-oriented touch. Not at all. If that happens, great. But this is literally just touching my own body. It's very wholesome. This is wholesome stuff, guys. Just touching my own tissues to essentially train my body. Wow, blood can go here. Wow, it can plump up tissues. Oh my God, this is so amazing for my pelvic floor muscles, because these erectile tissues are actually between two of the layers of pelvic floor muscle. We have the superficial pelvic floor muscles, and then we have the deep levator ani pelvic floor muscles. There's many aspects to the pelvic floor. It's not just one muscle. And so as we can really bring that blood flow to these erectile networks that we have as women in the vulva, it's actually feeding, it's bringing oxygen, nutrients, it's taking away waste from the fascia and the layers of pelvic floor muscles that we have. So how healthy of a thing can this be to just touch your vulva for 2 minutes after your shower or whatever? It doesn't matter. But so I practice myself. And then I encourage my partner to spend a little extra time, because I was not doing that before. Mm-hmm. And it's a constant presence. I've noticed personally, and I only say my personal story not because I'm so interesting, but because I think that a lot of people will relate, is I notice how often I do disassociate. I do come out of my body. I am completely unable to, first of all, my mind is busy. So that's part of it, just a busy mind. But also, I literally disassociate from my body. I come away, because it's almost like if things feel too good, I don't know how to be with that. And so part of this practice of the self-touch actually helps with that presence, during intimate experiences, and then just breathing and letting my partner know, like, I need time. This is practice, and this is going to help make a better sexual experience for both of us. He wants to please me, and I want to please him. And, it's mutual. But I know that we can only please each other if we take this time to really allow the arousal to take place. And touch is all it takes. Touch and presence.
Something we looked at recently, there was an Instagram post, something where not all men want to do. One of the main things men want to do when they're in their best place is that men want to presence her pleasure. Yeah. That's a really interesting thing, because there's a real cycle of energy exchange going on within that. Because we know that it's part of that dynamic we were talking about in terms of male arousal and female arousal. The kind of the slow increase also allows a man, then I think, probably to become into contact with his own kind of sexuality at a slower level as well, and to prolong the whole experience, which I think just makes for a much juicier time for everybody. 100%. It makes so much sense.
Yeah, it's so true. And it's so interesting as well, though, isn't it? Because I was just doing a workshop yesterday on jaw and pelvic floor, like our conversation that we had. And I was talking about this with all the women that were there, about how it's sort of, we haven't really had permission or something as women to talk about self-pleasure or touching ourselves, even if it's not, like you're saying, it's not even into masturbation. It's just like touching your vulva or relating to your vulva. Men seem to have a different, maybe, I don't know, is it the like internal, external thing, or is it like shame-based things? I'm not sure what it is. But I was saying to the women in the room, and most of these women are coming because they have some level of pelvic floor dysfunction. Maybe they're having pain, maybe they're not having sex anymore because of pain, maybe they can't orgasm, maybe they have thrush, whatever the things are. And when you get into that state, which is what we're talking about, so many people are in that state right now, more than ever, you do disassociate from the area down there, because and whether you're a man with erectile dysfunction, or you're you're the man, no, you're a man with erectile dysfunction, or you're a woman who's dealing with some kind of pelvic floor pain, you're not going like, oh, I love this area is my favorite area, I'll just go and touch it now, because you're just like, this is pain and it's shame and it's causing me stress. And then the more stress, the tighter everything gets, and the less blood flow, and the more it constricts the nerves, and the more that pain happens, and the less you're able to orgasm. And that cycle is this horrible negative feedback loop. And sometimes we just need to be given the permission that you just given of like, it's not about like get the mirror out and do some kind of fancy stuff with like crystal wands. Like maybe that's fun, but like it's also just about like get some oil and massage yourself, because we love massage. Like I was saying to go in the room, you will go for massage, right? And they're like, yeah. And it's like, so head massage, foot massage, like back, leg. Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I love it. Face, even we've been doing face in my workshops. Yeah. Vulva.
Yeah.
And I was like, what are you talking about, lady? But it's like, it's another area of our body that needs touch. And actually, it's got all this amazing tissue, like you were talking about. So in fact, it's better for touch. And we're like,
look at that.
Yeah.
Amazing.
It's just this amazing thing. And most people don't even know that exists.
No, and it's so big. This is
not seriously. I remember seeing that.
Yeah, it's significant. I mean, it's I believe it's almost 4 inches long, and wide around the vaginal opening. It's a very this is just the clitoris. Like, this isn't even all of the the network. But yes, that vulvar, there is so much shame around it, though. I think that I think that men have shame around it too. I think the shame is universal, but I think that starting at a young age, little kids do explore. And whereas, I don't know, I didn't grow up as a boy, but I will say that for girls, it's definitely, when we were growing up, at least, 40 years ago for me, 44 years ago for me, it was not okay. Even I breastfed my baby doll as a little girl when I was like 3. I remember this it was shameful that I had my shirt off and I was pretend breastfeeding my little doll. And this is something I've heard over and over, little girls that are like, oh my gosh, you can't be sitting on that pillow or whatever it may be. We're very much like, no, you don't touch yourself. And I can see the reasons. I can see why there were some things put in place by parents, but I think that was the start for so many of us to think of this part of the body or erogenous zones as bad and shameful and no-go zones. And then adding to that, maybe trauma, maybe situations that happen throughout our lives, unwanted advances, or, situations that were beyond our control, that has led to this being a very taboo and shameful spot. There's a complete lack of education about the pelvic area, which silence is a form of education. Silence is a form of us telling you what's right and what's wrong. If there's silence around something, it's something we don't talk about.
Yeah.
Silence speaks very loudly. Silence is,
And on the flip side of that, to come back to what you were talking about before, vocalization says something too, right? And that thing that you talked about was so important. It really struck a chord with me because I was thinking about, and you can probably maybe talk into this a little bit more, the links between the throat and the cervix, the jaw and the pelvic floor, and how they mirror each other. And so they're connected in terms of sexual arousal as well. But you were talking about that thing of having to practice telling your partner what you like. And also that when we swallow that down, when we don't speak, when there's silence, we're actually creating restriction in the pelvis and the pelvic floor because we're swallowing down the thing that we would have wanted to say because we feel maybe we're not worthy to say it, or it would be wrong to say it, or what we actually like might be shameful and embarrassing. And so even the practice of the speaking our truth is something that can de-stress our genital area.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yes, so embryologically, we do develop these two parts of our bodies, the reproductive area, the throat area. There's a connection from our embryological development onward. So there is a connection there. There's a fascial connection that exists in the adult body as well. There's really interesting anatomical, physiological connections between the throat and vocal areas and the pelvic area and the reproductive areas. But energetically, I think it's also interesting to talk about that for anyone open to like the chakra system and energy centers in our body. I think it's really fascinating that the pelvic area, the root chakra, the chakra number 1, the Muladhara chakra, that is Muladhara, yes, the root chakra. That is the chakra that is associated with the energy of safety, of protection, and security. And it's also a very creative center. The second chakra, the first and second chakra, they are all about creativity, not only birthing a baby, of course, if that's in your path, or helping to create a baby if you are a male body and you're helping to create life. But it's also about creative expression, your art, your business ideas, everything you want to do in this world. Creativity is housed in this part of your body, but it's an area that keeps things out and it also, keeps things from entering it by closing off and tightening up, or it allows things in. So it lets things out, pee, poop, etc. Creativity, birthing babies. It also receives and allows things in. So this is a really, really powerful area that has so many correlations to the throat, which is also a creative expression place where you birth ideas, where you vocalize, where you say things. And it's also a really terrifying area where if you say the wrong thing, if you're canceled, if you screw up, if you make a mistake, you could get, put out on the street. You could get excommunicated. You could get, like I said, canceled in today's cancel culture. So there's all sorts of reasons why we need to close off this area and not let things out. We don't want to let things out. Or we can open up and we can express. So both of the areas are like closing up or opening up to birth, to create, to express. And very, very powerful areas, and also very, very common for both of these areas to close up, tighten up, clench up, to protect us, because that's what our whole nervous system, as I said earlier, the whole purpose of our nervous system is to protect us. It's a servant of protection. And so our mind-body connection is going to be like, nope, close up in the throat and potentially the pelvic area. Not safe. Tighten up, close up. So working on that practice of self-expression can be very powerful for your nervous system and for sexual health, for the throat and pelvic area.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, because we talk about it often with vagal nerve tone, like humming, gargling, chanting, and so many, nearly all traditional cultures that you come across have some sort of powerful vocalization practice. And it's funny because I actually stopped singing in the last year. I just stopped singing in the shower, and I noticed I went to sing recently. I was like, Jesus, I've lost like a load of my range. And I was like, I'm suddenly just like hard. It's really distressing. You're like, hang on a minute. You actually have to practice these things. Like the same with vulval touch. All of these things, they need continuous kind of like attention. And it's so easy to let them slide, isn't it?
It sure is. Yeah.
I think also you were talking just then about like the tightening and the protection, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of the thing that we're here to talk about, is like when we're not safe, like our body essentially needs safety signals in order to open and soften and relax. And what we're seeing in bodies in this dysfunction, sexually, reproductively, in terms of sexual desire as well as sexual function, is a bracing, isn't it? It's like a protection. Everyone's like, I'm not safe, so I'll just harden and tighten and close and then I restrict the blood flow, and I don't feel anything, and I don't arouse anything, and I don't let anything in, and I don't let anything out. And so part of this is needing to send those safety signals back to the body. And how do we send those safety signals to the body when we're being bombarded by all this scary information on the news and the busyness and the hardness and the challenge and the money problems and all those things? Do you have any somatic practices or movement practices or things that people can do at home if they're like, I recognize this, I'm tight, everything's tight in my body, I'm wound up? Like, how can I start to begin to let the softening so the blood flow goes back into those areas again?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing is just to recognize it when it's happening. So recognize this natural reaction. Our bodies will react by bracing, by tightening up to protect us. It's natural, and like, it's okay. These responses are designed to keep us alive. Thank God for these responses. Like, you didn't do anything wrong. Nobody has done anything wrong by finding today's world to be utterly terrifying, even if it's just at a subconscious level. It is terrifying. It's terrifying knowing that Alexa is listening to me right now. And, like, it's scary. And it's okay that our nervous systems are highly reactive. It's okay that they will do things to cause tension in our muscles, to cause constriction around our throats, to cause a lack of libido and a lack of blood flow to the pelvic area, and us to not want to have sex. Like, it's just the way it is. Our bodies are doing their job. So thank you, body. Like, thank you, body. So, but it's noticing when that reaction occurs. That's when we need to, ultimately practice by taking very, very small steps toward responding, so that we can not just be reacting all the time, but actually respond responsibly, respond in a responsible way to these things, where we can realize, well, actually, maybe I am okay right now. I'm noticing this tension. I'm noticing this fear, or I'm noticing this lack of safety, or this hyperstimulation in my mind. I'm noticing that I have zero desire for sex, and I haven't for a month or 2 months or 3 months. Something's probably wrong. Something could be shifted. So that's when we can take steps to resetting. And I mean, to me, it always comes back to this pattern I take my clients through, which is basically, we want to drop in to our bodies in some way. We want to clear the channel, which is usually some type of breathing practice, just to kind of open things up energetically. And then we want to move the energy, which is that tension, usually, that's stuck inside of us. And then we want to refill with something that feels really good. And so that practice can be very quick. It can be even just 30 seconds to, recognize that you're feeling like you need a reset, and then to drop into your body. For me, putting my hand on my heart is always a really great starting place, because if you just go straight to, just relax, take a deep breath, that doesn't always work, Usually we need to take a minute to do something to drop us into our body before we can just relax. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So hand on heart for me is always helpful. And then the clearing the channel often is a bit of a breath practice, but for me, a big exhale with a loud, just like blowing out, like, a couple of those. I mean, you can get fancy with it. You can do the physiological sigh, which you guys have probably covered on your channel, the 2 breaths in and then a long exhale out. Very effective. Even just a few of those can be really helpful at clearing the channel. And then moving the energy when you notice, oh God, I'm feeling really tense in my butt muscles are tight. They're clenched, or I haven't taken a deep breath all day. My ribs feel so tight, or the backs of my lungs feel tight because I'm stressed. Mm-hmm. And so then you can move the energy, maybe shimmy. I love shimmying, kind of shaking out my shoulders, or I love me some hip circles. You can also just shake your body, shake your hands, whatever it may be. Maybe go for a walk if you have time for that, but that takes a little longer. And then refilling with something, whether it's just a single deep breath and another hand on your heart and some self-love, some self-compassion, or just the phrase, in this now moment, I am safe, or, whatever it may be. It doesn't have to be some positive affirmation. It can be something really simple. I am safe, whatever it may be. But that's a simple practice to help regulate your nervous system and to practice it, coming back to it again and again. Like I said, it doesn't have to take long, but it starts with you. That's how we start with improving our sex lives. Even though, yes, we want to have our partner on board, we want to have communication with our partner and tell them what we need. But I truly believe that it starts with you. You have to start with these simple practices regularly throughout the day.
Yeah, we get questions about singles. We talked a lot about couples, and there's some very scary stats about single people staying single for a long time, not having any sex for long periods of time. Obviously there's lots and lots of toxic ways that people are having sex as well and engaging in, apps and all sorts of stuff. But is there what have we got for them, I guess, in a way, if you're not able to connect with another person, is there a way to embrace that kind of dynamic? What do you help when you're coaching people who are single, who are struggling with that lack of connection with another?
Well, for me, the practice I always use is the vulvar. Again, I'm just speaking for women, just the vulvar touch, just self-touch practices. And again, my whole thing is that it's non-goal oriented, and it is giving yourself love, because really for most of us, we're wanting connection. We're wanting love and orgasm. Sure, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. But it's the connection. And yes, I mean, we would love for it to be with a partner, but if that's not available for us or it's not in our life at the moment, that connection with ourselves in a slow, gentle way, just to have the connection. It still stimulates all of those wonderful things that sex stimulates, the hormones, the dopamine, all those wonderful hormones that are the feel-good endorphins and happy hormones that sex produces, the oxytocin. We can get that from self-touch. It doesn't have to be from a partnered relationship. So, I mean, I call it vulvar healing touch. It's literally a form of consensual self-touch that anybody can do, partnered or not, and consensual with yourself. So you actually have to be in the zone and give yourself time. So again, this will take a little bit of time, but it could be as quick as 2 minutes, like I was referring to earlier. It doesn't have to take a lot of time. But ultimately, if you have 10 minutes that you can really devote to yourself, where you're in an environment that feels yummy and delicious, like you have maybe a candle lit for you, not for a partner, but put on some sexy playlist and light a candle, or put pillows all around you, make it yummy. And then just give yourself time and begin by touching areas that are not your intimate areas. Touch your thighs, touch your belly, touch your breasts, whatever it may be. Well, I guess those are still intimate areas, but touching areas outside of the vulva first. And then coming very slowly with tenderness, like you were with a lover, but you're with yourself. and just slowly touching the vulva, if we're talking about females here, and only doing so after you've actually asked yourself if this is something you want right now. Because many of us have never had that type of relationship with another or with ourselves. We just do stuff because, oh, Brie said to do this, or Lydia and Finn said to do this. No. Do you want to do it right now? And maybe you don't. And maybe it takes like 3 or 4 practices before you actually do want to touch your vulva. That is beautiful information, and it's so loving to your body. And it creates this connection and relationship with your body that you can give to you. Like, you have the power to give yourself this connection. And it changes your personality. It changes your energy. It changes the aura you have about you when you do this on a regular basis. It doesn't have to be every day, but a date night with yourself. It might sound kind of cliche or silly, but it's really powerful.
It's amazing how much, like, I always think of myself as someone who's like super open, and I talk about this stuff all the time, and I teach workshops on it, and I'm really open to all different types of sexual experiences and with partners and with myself and all those things. Which is amazing how even listening to you talk about that, there's resistance there. Like, I'm noticing resistance in myself going, like, am I really gonna set up cushions for myself and like put the music on for myself on the counter? Like, why?
Yeah. Why are you not willing to romance yourself? Like, what is the problem?
I love massage. I do breast massage every day, and I massage my body with oils and stuff. But when I'm putting it into that context where I'm going like, and then that might lead to touching my intimate places, suddenly I'm like, no, I probably won't do the rituals around that. That feels a bit like, but it's just like, is it even worth it? I don't know. It's like, but then if you're with a partner, like, I'm always like, I'll light all the candles and I'm doing the Palo Santo and we're getting the thing. That's so interesting to watch the resistance that's there. Yeah. But like, I wouldn't have said I had that resistance. But as I'm listening to you talk, I'm like, oh, I can feel that happening, which is
Totally. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a taboo area. It's an area that we've been trained as shameful and whatever, all these different things that we've heard and absorbed over the years. Even if we don't agree with it, it's still stories and beliefs that are potentially in our cells, our cellular memory, is that this is not okay to touch yourself. Mm-hmm. And also we do tend to put ourselves last as humans, but I do think especially as women, I think everybody does. I really do. But women,
I think there's a thing around, sorry to interrupt, the thing around like, I don't know if we like ourselves enough to give ourselves the generosity of some romance. I don't know if I think even with the best will in the world, I think you probably like yourself more than most people. And I like myself quite a lot as well, but I still have that same sense of some stuff. I don't know if I'm worth it. And I'm weird because you raised it, because I was thinking exactly the same thing. I was like, why am I I was almost internally being kind of dismissive of the notion of the practice.
Right.
Why is this? Because I believe in it. Like, I literally believe it. I couldn't believe in it more.
Yeah.
And yet, for some reason, I think I don't like myself enough to maybe go like, no, nah, you're not really worth it. Second.
It's also
for their own.
There's an element of, it makes so much sense, and it's so glad that you said it, that the thing of planning to touch yourself, touching everywhere else, and then going like, do I actually want to touch myself right now? And then giving yourself permission to say, I don't.
Yeah.
Because that's a huge thing, isn't it? Like, the amount of times you interact with your partner where, like, conceptually you want sex and you fancy your partner and you enjoy sex, and then you have the sex and the sex is good. But if you were really, really honest with yourself, you maybe didn't really want to have sex that day in that, you're a bit tired or whatever the reasons are, but you felt like you couldn't say that because it sounded like you didn't like them. You didn't want to have sex with them. There was something that they had done or something you weren't sexy enough, so that was going to reflect on you badly. Whereas if you practice that with yourself and give yourself permission to say that yourself and listen to the signals your body's giving you, it's going to be much easier then to have that moment with your partner where you're like, gee, that's not the thing that I feel like today. I'd really like to do this other thing. Yeah. And then be able to say to them, I find that myself actually when I'm touching myself. Some days I think I'm going to touch myself, and actually I realize that's not what I want today. And so it kind of gives that, it changes the whole.
We've got the language, you've had a conversation, and like, it's so interesting when you spend time having a conversation with yourself over any kind of like for me, it's a lot with like impulses towards like foods or bad habits or things that I'm like, or anger or whatever it is. Like I just like have a conversation internally about this. You're like, oh, you develop a language around it because you feel where it's coming from. You feel where the tension is, and you kind of go like, do I or don't I? Oh, I have a choice. And even just choice is a gift. Choice is such a gift. And in those moments as well, you're like, oh, actually, no, I actually choose book, or I choose like massage thighs and stop and just look at the candle, whatever it is.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and choice is safety.
Yeah, there you go.
Have that choice, and we know we can make the choice and state it and be respected. That is safety. I recently, because every time we're entered as women, before we're ready or when we don't actually want it, our bodies hold on to that. And so I want to go 2 quick places with this. One is that potentially another reason people may not want to do this practice of self-touch, non-goal-oriented, slow, gentle self-touch is because it can bring up some shizzle. It can bring up some strong emotions when you give yourself that choice and maybe say, no, I don't want to. You might start crying. It might unlock emotions that are held inside. When you touch your body slowly in these intimate places with just love and compassion and tenderness, no goals, no orgasms, no whatever, it can make tears just flow. And for some people, that is scary and confronting. So, I mean, that's part of it too.
Yeah.
But another quick little side tangent is I was recently in a training where we actually were doing a lot of body work. And one thing that we practiced was the sacred no, where we were with the practitioner. So I, as the client, I basically was asked to access a deep no in my body, like just something inside where I was like, no. And the feeling of no. And the person who was doing the touch, she removed her hand from my body as soon as I started feeling the no. I started feeling the no inside. And I just started saying no, 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 and using my voice. So tying it back into that voice, using my voice and saying it, and then to be completely respected by having the practitioner completely remove with love and care any type of touch, any type of, anything except just her loving presence. Her loving presence was there, but there was no touch. She completely respected my wishes. Oh my gosh, that was so profound, because most of us, we don't even say no half the time when we mean no. And it's so stuck in our bodies. Energetically, that is so stuck in our bodies. And so working with yourself first to develop that relationship, developing the listening touch, developing the respect and compassion to listen to your own no. Oh, it's just magical. I wish that everyone could try it, but I want to honor that we all feel that resistance that both of you have articulated. And I feel it too. Even talking about it out loud, I'm like, gosh, I know this is sort of edgy for some people, and it's edgy for me. I didn't ever touch my own vulva until I was like 35. I'm 40.
Wow.
No, I'm not, and I'm not kidding. Like never. I had used a vibrator before that, but never with my own hands had I touched my own vulva before I was 35. Yeah.
Oh, that's another podcast.
All right. And I'm happy to share that because I think I'm probably not alone,
No, I'm sure you're not.
So I want to just say that also because it's like, yeah, I may talk about this and seem like I'm some, I don't know, person who just has done this her whole life, but I'm not at all. Not at all.
Wow. That's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And so many things. I've got like a million things to go away and like think about now and act on and embody. And it's really nice. There's so many takeaways from this. I think for me, the reminder that we need to feel really safe and we need to feel like we have choice in order to open. Those two things are really big, and to really know that, because when you have that information, you can then set up the environment so that it feels like you have choice and you feel safe, or whatever safe means to you, right? For me, it might mean my kid's not going to walk in My bedroom is like super clean. Everything smells lovely. There's nice music on. Like those things matter to me. They really do. Like if there's a pile of laundry, that's going to stress my head out so bad.
I want the dishes to be done.
They have to be done. They have to be done so much. So those things, it's like you said, we have to have the information and the awareness before we can make the change. And I think you've given that so clearly today. So I really thank you for that.
Yeah. Lots to take away. Okay. Thank you so much, Brie. And thank you very much for listening. Those who are listening and watching, and please post comments and ask us questions and ask Brie, and go to her, please find her
YouTube channel.
Her amazing YouTube channel. It is like such a font of practices and knowledge and like great stuff, really, and also entertaining. You're great fun, which really, really helps. It's such a necessary part of the thing. And it just remains for us then to thank our sponsors, Clear Light Saunas. We're so very lucky to have an infrared sauna partner who gets to have those. We do. And so if you guys want to get some of the healing energy of a low EMF, no EMF, no ELF sauna, as in like fully shielded from all the harmful rays, but just soaking up the good rays, good infrared rays that are going to help to detoxify your body. They're going to help support blood flow to all those intimate areas. We got an interesting testimonial coming about that sometime soon. All that good stuff. So come and talk to us. You'll get 300 quid off your order, and we'll be able to give you our sauna guide, all the sort of personalized, specialized stuff. So if you're interested, come and talk to us about that. Also, our very own clothing collection. Oh, go on. No? Yeah. Sorry. I thought you were about to bring something. I was like, has she got a sauna on the side? You're pulling in. That was good. But so our clothing as well. We have on the wanderingwellnessproject.com. People can come and they can buy merch for us, which is all organic and like handmade here in Ireland, hand designed and made here in Ireland. And also you can come and work with one-to-one on there. We do corporates, all that sort of fun stuff. So you want to access more stuff from us, more stuff from Brie, that is the place to go. And that's about it, I think, probably, isn't it?
Yeah. Go touch your vulvas.
Go touch your vulvas. Seriously. No messing.
Okay, bye.
Bye, thanks.
Bye, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.